you feel lost in life, struggling to find meaning, direction, or just tired of all the chaos around you, then this video is for you. 12 Rules for Life by Jordan B. Peterson isn't just another self-help book, it's a wake-up call. A blend of ancient wisdom, psychology, philosophy, and brutal truth. In this video, we are breaking down each rule, one by one. Not just to explain them, but to show you how they apply to your real life, right now. From standing tall with your shoulders back to finding peace in chaos, Peterson's insights hit hard, and whether you agree with him or not, you can't ignore the impact of this book on millions around the world. So stick around because by the end of this video, you won't just know what the rules are. You will understand why they matter and how they can change your mindset, your habits, and maybe even your future. Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Did you know that your posture doesn't just affect how others see you? It rewires your brain to see yourself differently. There's the powerful message behind Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. And no, this isn't just about confidence or looking good. According to Jordan Peterson, it's about survival, dominance, and reclaiming control over your life. Let's talk lobsters. Yes, seriously, lobsters. Peterson opens this rule with a deep dive into lobster behavior. When two lobsters fight for territory, the winner becomes visibly stronger and more upright. The loser, he slouches, becomes chemically weaker, and changes posture to signal defeat. This isn't just crustacean trivia, it's biology. Their nervous systems are wired to respond to hierarchy. And guess what? So are ours. Humans, like lobster, exist in social hierarchies. Your body posture sends a message, not only to others, but to your brain. When you slouch, you are sending a constant signal. I am submissive. I don't matter. I'm not capable. Over time, this posture reinforces a negative feedback loop. Lower confidence, higher anxiety, reduced motivation, you become your posture. But here's a twist. You can reverse that loop. Standing up straight with your shoulders back activates a chain reaction in your mind. Your brain releases more serotonin, the same chemical that separates the dominant lobsters from the defeated ones. You feel more alert, assertive, and prepared to handle life's challenges. People notice, you gain respect, and slowly your external presence reshapes your internal world. Peterson isn't telling you to fake confidence, he's telling you to embody it physically. Until your brain catches up, you don't need to be perfect. Just start with posture. Every time you walk into a room, ask yourself, am I shrinking or standing up straight? Every time you sit at your desk, am I caving in or facing life head on? These tiny adjustments build momentum. Why does this matter so much? Because life is a dominance game, not in a toxic, power-hungry way, but in a real, biological sense. Opportunities go to those who are willing to take up space. Respect goes to those who carry themselves like they matter. You can't influence the world if you don't show up like you belong in it. And this isn't just about job interviews or public speaking, it's about how you show up in your own life. Standing up straight is the first declaration that you are not a victim, that you have agency, that despite the chaos and unpredictability of life, you are capable of facing it head on. So next time you walk into a difficult situation, strengthen your spine, lift your chest, and let your shoulders fall back. You don't have to feel confident to do it. Do it, and the confidence will follow. Peterson's Rule 1 isn't shallow life advice. It's deeply rooted in science, psychology, and philosophy. It's a challenge. Are you willing to physically embody the strength you want to feel? Because the truth is, if you don't start acting like you matter, the world won't treat you like you do. Rule number 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Let me ask you something personal. If your best friend are in pain, would you ignore them? If your pet needed life saving medication, would you skip their treatment just because you didn't feel like it? Of course not. You would step in. You would help. You would take responsibility. So here's a brutal question Jordan Peterson asked in Rule 2. Why don't you treat yourself the same way? In 12 Rules for Life, Peterson reveals a strange and disturbing truth. People are far more likely to care for others than they are to care for themselves. Studies even show that patients are more likely to give their pets prescribed medicine than to take their own. Why? Because deep down, many people believe they don't deserve care. They feel unworthy, broken, not good enough to be helped. But Peterson challenges that idea head on. He says you are not your enemy. You are a being worth saving, worth guiding, worth fighting for. And you have a moral obligation to treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. Think about how you advise someone you love. You are gentle, clear, and encouraging. You see their potential even when they don't. Now contrast that with how you talk to yourself. The self criticism, the guilt, the procrastination, the self sabotage. Would you ever talk to a loved one that way? Then why are you okay doing it to yourself? Treating yourself like someone you are responsible for helping means something very practical. You set boundaries, you prioritize your health, you stop tolerating toxic habits, and most importantly, you stop making excuses for staying in suffering when you have the power to change. This rule isn't about self indulgence, it's about self respect. Helping yourself means doing hard things, going to therapy, saying no to junk, leaving that relationship, making that scare move, because that's what you would advise someone you love to do. Peterson calls it moral responsibility, not just to yourself, but to the people who depend on you. Because when you are broken or bitter, your pain spills in the world. But when you are strong and well, you lift others. So, where's the action step here? Start small. Ask yourself, if I cared about myself the way I care for my loved ones, what would I do today? Would I rest? Would I exercise? Would I speak up? Would I stop numbing myself? And finally, do the thing that matters. Mindset shift rewires your life. Remember, self care is not selfish, it's strategic, it's the foundation of a life that works because when you treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping, you stop living by default and start living on purpose. Jordan Peterson's Rule 2 isn't some feel good affirmation. It's a challenge to stop being the bully in your mind, to stop abandoning yourself, and to finally show up for you. Rule number 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. Let's be honest, we have all had that one friend who seems to always be surrounded by chaos. They drain your energy, pull you into drama, and when things go wrong, they never take responsibility. But here's a hard truth Jordan Peterson puts forward in Rule 3. You become like the people you surround yourself with. So the question is, are your friends helping you rise or pulling you down? Peterson doesn't mince words. He says, if someone is on a downward spiral and doesn't genuinely want to get better, they will drag you with them. And it's not cruel to walk away from that. It might be one of the most compassionate things you can do for both of you. We often stay in toxic relationships because of guilt, loyalty, or fear of being alone. But Peterson reminds us loyalty is meaningless if it costs you your future. A true friend isn't someone who keeps you stuck. It's someone who celebrates your wins, pushes you to grow, and wants to see you become your best self. So, what does it mean to make friends with people who want the best for you? It means surrounding yourself with people who encourage your goals, tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable, take responsibility for their lives, cheer when you succeed, not secretly hope you fail. Peterson explains that friendship isn't just about shared interests, it's about shared values. When your friends value growth, discipline, and truth, you are naturally pulled in the same direction. But if your friends normalize mediocrity, self pity, or victimhood, you will slowly sink into these patterns even if you don't realize it. Here's a powerful thought. If your friends wouldn't want the best for you, are they your friends? Sometimes we cling to unhealthy relationships because they feel familiar, but familiarity doesn't equal support. Peterson's advice is blunt but liberating. Stop rescuing people who don't want to be saved and start aligning with people who are walking the path of progress. Think about it like this. If you are climbing a mountain, you need people who are climbing too, not people who are trying to pull you back to base camp. You don't owe anyone your stagnation. You owe yourself growth, and that starts with choosing your cycle wisely. And remember, this rule isn't about cutting people off cold. It's about setting standards. Ask yourself, do the people closest to me reflect the future I want? If the answer is no, it might be time for a hard conversation or a quiet exit. Making friends with people who want the best for you is not easy, but it's transformational. It opens doors, it builds confidence, and creates a life where you are constantly pushed toward becoming your best version. Because at the end of the day, your future is shaped by who you allow into your present. Choose wisely and unapologetically. Rule number 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday and not to who someone else is today. Let's face it, comparison is everywhere. You scroll through social media and someone your age just bought a house. Another person launched a business, someone else has six pack abs, perfect lighting, and a caption about gratitude, and suddenly your own life feels small. Leads the trap Jordan Peterson warns about in Rule 4. Stop comparing yourself to others. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Here's why that matters. When you compare yourself to others, you are comparing your entire messy life to their highlight reel. You don't see their struggle, you don't know their story. Peterson says this kind of comparison is unfair and worse. It's paralyzing. It robs you of motivation, it fuels resentment, and eventually it convinces you that no matter what you do, you will never be enough. But there's a better way. Shift the comparison inward. Ask yourself, am I just 1% better than I was yesterday? Did I eat a little healthier? Focus a little longer? Speak a little kinder? Because that's progress. That's real growth. And that's the only comparison that matters. Peterson explains that we are all living different stories, different backgrounds, different personalities, different challenges. So, chasing someone else's path is like trying to win a race on a track you don't belong to. You will always feel behind even if you are moving forward. But when you measure your life against your timeline, suddenly you see how far you have come. This rule is deeply connected to meaning and self respect. You don't need to be the best, you just need to be better than the old you. The version of you who gave up too quickly, who didn't try, who stayed silent, who ignored the opportunity. Beat that person today and tomorrow. Beat this version of yourself day by day. The wins stack up. Peterson also reminds us that small personal improvements are powerful. They build momentum, and momentum builds confidence. Instead of being crushed by what you lack, you will start to feel proud of what you are building. That's what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. Self comparison with intention. So, how do you practice this rule in real life? Start with a simple reflection every night. Ask, what did I do today that was a little bit better than yesterday? Write it down, celebrate it, track it. The journal becomes proof that you are improving, even if no one else notices. When someone else wins, celebrate them, don't turn it into a weapon against yourself. Their success doesn't mean your failure. You are on your journey, and the only race that matters is the one between your past and present self. Peterson's Rule 4 isn't just practical, it's healing. It pulls you out of shame and into growth, out of envy and into effort, because when you stop measuring your worth by someone else's life, you finally start to take control of your own. Rule number 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Let's be brutally honest for a moment. Not every parent loves being around their child. They may love their kids deeply, but they don't always like them. Jordan Peterson tackles this uncomfortable truth in Rule 5. Don't let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Because if you do, it's not just bad for you, it's a ticking time bomb for them. Peterson says that parents have a deep, often unspoken responsibility to raise children in a way that makes them socially desirable, not just to you, but to the rest of the world. That means teaching them respect, patience, boundaries, and discipline even when it's uncomfortable. Because if your child grows up without limits, the world will give them harsher consequences than you ever could. And here's the thing many people misunderstand. Children don't magically grow out of bad behavior, they grow into it. If you ignore rudeness, tantrums, disrespect, or manipulation when they are small, you are planting seeds that become full grown dysfunction later. Peterson doesn't sugarcoat it. The child who can't behave at 4 becomes the lead who's out of control at 14, and the adult no one wants to be around at 24. But why do parents let it slide? Peterson says it's often out of fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of being the bad guy, fear of causing emotional harm. But here's a paradox. Discipline isn't cruelty, it's compassion. Setting boundaries teaches a child how they behave so that other people will want to be around them. And that's one of the greatest gifts a parent can give. So, what does this look like in practice? It means saying no when it matters and meaning it. It means correcting behavior early with firmness, not anger. It means holding your child accountable even when you are exhausted or frustrated. Because if you let them run wild to avoid conflict now, you are setting them up for rejection, loneliness, and failure later. Peterson even says this: if you don't discipline your child, you will come to resent them. And resentment in a parent is toxic because it leaks into your tone, your patience, your affection. The very thing you are trying to avoid, harming your child, ends up happening anyway, slowly and painfully. That's why Peterson urges parents to discipline with love and intention, not to break your child's spirit but to reshape it, to teach them how the world works, to prepare them for reality. Because a child who learns boundaries at home walks into the world with confidence, not confusion. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. A child who understands no at home is less likely to hit walls out in the real world. A child who is taught respect by their parents will be respected by their peers, teachers, and future employers. And that all starts with parenting that's clear, consistent, and courageous. Peterson's Rule 5 is a challenge to every parent. Don't just raise a child you love, raise a child you enjoy. And to do that, you need to take responsibility, not just for their behavior, but for the future person they are becoming. Rule number 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. We live in a world that's full of injustice, corrupt leaders, broken systems rising, prices falling, morals, and the instinct is to blame, to point the finger outward. But Jordan Peterson asks a difficult, uncomfortable question in Rule 6. Before you criticize the world, is your own life in order? Peterson isn't saying the world isn't broken. It is. He is not denying pain, inequality, or suffering. But he warns that if you skip the personal work and go straight to blaming the system, you risk becoming bitter, resentful, and dangerously self righteous. And worse, you might be blind to the mess that you have quietly laid build up in your own life. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. This doesn't mean you need to be flawless to speak up. It means your first revolution must happen in your own room, in your daily habits, your relationships, your thoughts, your behavior. Because if your life is falling apart, how can you claim the moral high ground? Peterson shares stories of people who have endured unthinkable tragedy, and how many of them responded not with blame but with radical responsibility. They took control of what they could even when the world around them was on fire. There's power, there's order in chaos, there's Rule 6 in action. So, what does setting your house in order actually look like? Start simple. Are you eating well, sleeping enough, telling the truth, paying your bills on time, taking care of your health, apologizing your wrong, fixing things you have neglected? These aren't small tasks, they are the foundation of personal integrity. And here's the truth: when you fix your inner world, the outer world becomes clearer. You stop seeing enemies everywhere. You stop hiding behind outrage and start stepping into ownership. You become someone who acts, not someone who complains. Peterson warns that many of history's darkest ideologies were born from people who refused to confront their darkness. They blamed the world, burned it down, and lived their own lives in ruins. Don't be that person. Be the one who says, before I go out to save the world, I'll clean my room. This isn't a weakness, it's a discipline. Because changing the world takes strength, and you build that strength by mastering your habits, emotions, and responsibilities. You lead yourself before you lead others. So, next time you feel the urge to rant about everything wrong, pause, look around. What can you fix in your own life today? Because the person who brings order into their home brings light into the world. And that's how real change begins. Not with protest signs, but with personal truth. Rule number 7: pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. We live in a world addicted to shortcuts, quick fixes, fast monies, instant results. We are constantly bombarded with the messages: do what works now. But Jordan Peterson flips that mindset upside down in Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. So, what does that mean? Expedient means the easy way out. It means lying to get ahead, ghosting someone instead of having the hard conversation, and chasing short term pleasure over long term purpose. Experience is seductive. It feels good in the moment, but it's a trap because every time you choose what's convenient over what's meaningful, you sacrifice your future for your comfort. Peterson goes deep into history to explain this. He references ancient religious texts and the story of sacrifice, the idea that you must give up something now to gain something greater later. This principle isn't just spiritual, it's psychological. The people who rise, grow, thrive are the ones willing to endure discomfort today in pursuit of something greater tomorrow. Think about your life. Experience says, scroll TikTok for 2 more hours. Meaning says, finish the project that will change your life. Experience says, stay in the toxic relationship because it's familiar. Meaning says, wake away and rebuild yourself from scratch. You already know which one leads to regret and which one leads to real transformation. Peterson isn't telling you to avoid pleasure, he is telling you to delay gratification in service of something that matters. Meaning doesn't scream for your attention the way distraction does. It whispers. It's subtle, and that's why it's harder to choose, but far more powerful when you do. And here's the uncomfortable truth: a meaningful life is built on responsibility. Responsibility for your actions, your potential, your suffering. That's why meaning is scary. It asks you to carry weight, but it is the only thing strong enough to keep you from collapsing under the chaos of life. Peterson says meaning is what sustains us when life becomes unbearable, because suffering is guaranteed. You will face pain, loss, and disappointment. And when that moment comes, the cheap rewards of experience won't help you. But if you have lived with meaning, if you have built career, purpose, and relationships, you will have something solid to stand on. So, how do we start pursuing meaning? Ask yourself, what am I avoiding because it's uncomfortable but necessary? What goal, habit, or relationship aligns with who I want to be? What would my life look like if I stopped chasing easy and started choosing meaningful? Jordan Peterson's Rule 7 isn't just advice, it's a worldview. It's a reminder that the good life isn't found in hacks or hustle. It's found in waking up each day and choosing to move one step closer to the person you are meant to be. Not the easiest path, but the only one that actually matters. Rule number 8: tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Have you ever told a little lie to avoid conflict? Maybe you said you were fine when you weren't. Maybe you nodded along even though you completely disagreed. We all do it. But in Rule 8, Jordan Peterson makes one thing painfully clear. Every time you lie, no matter how small, you chip away at your soul. Peterson isn't just talking about big, obvious lies. He is talking about the daily, quiet dishonesty that creeps in when we are scared to speak up, when we tell others what they want to hear just to keep the peace, or worse, when we lie to ourselves to avoid facing the truth. And here's the uncomfortable reality: lies grow. They tangle into your relationships, your decisions, your self image until you don't even know who you are anymore. Because the moment you start living a lie, you stop living authentically. You become a version of yourself, crafted for approval, not for truth. Peterson argues that lying isn't just morally wrong, it's dangerous. It weakens the structure of your character. It corrupts your future because it disconnects you from reality. If you build your life on lies, how can it possibly stand when things get hard? But telling the truth, that's terrifying. Truth brings conflict. Truth can make you lose friends, jobs, and even relationships. But Peterson says the truth is what redeems the world from hell. It's the only solid foundation for a life that doesn't collapse under pressure. Now listen. Peterson knows the truth is complicated. Sometimes you don't know the full truth, sometimes it's hard to express it clearly. That's why he says, tell the truth, or at least don't lie. If you can't be perfectly honest, at least refuse to participate in a lie. Stay silent if you must, but don't fake agreement, don't smile through betrayal. Don't say yes when your soul is screaming no. Here's a powerful shift. When you stop lying, you stop being a puppet. You stop outsourcing your values to other people's approval. You start standing on your own 2 feet. Vulnerable, yes, but real. And the more you live in truth, the more you begin to attract truth. Your relationships become deeper, your decisions become clearer, your confidence grows not because you are perfect, but because you are honest. So ask yourself, what are the lies I tell just to keep the peace? Where am I sacrificing truth just to be liked or fit in? What would it look like to be honest? Honest with myself. Peterson's message isn't easy. Truth costs something, but lying costs everything. The truth might burn at first, but it cleanses. Lies might comfort you, but they rot you from the inside. Choose truth even if your voice shakes, even if it costs you, because at the end of the day, the only life worth living is the one built on something real. Rule number 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. Have you ever caught yourself nodding during a conversation just waiting for your turn to speak? Or maybe you have judged someone's opinion before they have even finished their sentence. Jordan Peterson's Rule 9 is a humbling challenge to that mindset. He says, assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't. That sounds simple, right? But think about it. How often do we listen? Not to reply, not to correct, but to understand. Peterson argues that every person you meet has a piece of knowledge that you don't. And if you shut them out, if you approach every conversation with ego or superiority, you are cutting yourself off from growth. This rule isn't about being passive, it's not about accepting everything people say without thinking critically. It's about approaching conversation with humility. The kind of humility that says there's always something to learn, even from people I disagree with. Peterson draws heavily from Gary Rogers, the psychologist who said, the great majority of us cannot listen. We find ourselves compelled to evaluate. That's a trap. We listen through a filter, through our judgments, our biases, our need to be right. But truth listening, transformational listening, only happens when we put those filters down. And here's where it gets interesting. When you listen to someone, not just their words, but words behind the words, you open a gateway into their world. You see the pain they hide, the experiences that shape their views, the logic behind their beliefs, even if those beliefs differ from yours. Imagine this, you are in a conversation with someone who sees the world completely differently. You could argue, you could win the debate, but what if instead you asked questions not to trap them but to understand them? That's what Rule 9 is about. It's about being curious instead of combative. Peterson even says that sometimes in conversation you will realize that the other person is saying something that you desperately needed to hear. But if you came in with a closed mind, you would have missed it. Listening isn't just a courtesy, it's a survival tool. It's how we upgrade our thinking, connect with people, and avoid blind spots that could wreck us later. And let's not forget this, listening makes people feel seen, it builds trust, it deepens relationships in a world where everyone is shouting to be heard. Being someone who listens is rare and powerful. So here's the challenge for you. Today, this week, find one conversation where you practice Rule 9. Not to impress, not to argue, not to preach, but just to listen with the mindset that the other person might know something you don't. Because here's the truth Jordan Peterson drives home. Wisdom doesn't come from talking, it comes from listening. The more you listen, the more you grow. The more you grow, the more you value bring to every room, every relationship, every decision. So, next time you are in a conversation, pause and ask yourself, what if they know something I need to hear? That one question could change everything. Rule 10. Be precise in your speech. Have you ever noticed how problems in life grow when you avoid talking about them? Jordan Peterson says that's not just a coincidence, that's a cost of vagueness. Rule 10 tells us be precise in your speech because clarity is power and ambiguity is chaos. When you speak vaguely, you invite confusion. When you avoid naming the problem, it multiplies. Peterson argues that naming things correctly is the first step toward mastery over them. If you can't define your pain, your fear, or your goals, how will you solve, face, or reach them? Think of life like a messy room. If you don't point at the dirt and say, that's what needs cleaning, you'll walk around it forever, annoyed, frustrated, maybe even depressed, but never actually cleaning anything. Peterson says is how you shine a light into the darkness. And it's not just about talking to others, it's also about how you speak to yourself. Vague self talk like I'm not happy or something's wrong won't lead you anywhere. But when you say I'm feeling anxious because I haven't prepared for my presentation tomorrow, now you have a target. Now you can act. Being precise takes courage because when you define a problem clearly, you can no longer hide from it. You can't blame it on the world, your parents, your past, or vague bad luck. You are forced to admit, here's what's wrong, and here's what I can do about it. And that's exactly why most people avoid it. But here's the truth, you cannot improve what you will not articulate, whether it's a falling relationship, a declining career, or a personal weakness. Until you describe it clearly and honestly, nothing changes. Peterson also warns about the chaos that implied speech causes in relationships. Think about a fight with a partner that spiraled out of control, not because of the issue, but because neither of you could say exactly what you meant. You said, you never listened when you meant, I felt hurt when you dismissed my idea. Big difference. One starts a war, the other starts a conversation. Clarity creates peace. It reduces unnecessary drama. It helps people understand what you really need, what you really value, and where you really stand. And in a world filled with noise, confusion, and manipulation, that kind of clarity is rare and powerful. So, how do you start applying Rule 10 today? When you feel something, describe it. When something goes wrong, define it. When you need help, ask for it. Don't dance around the issue. Don't disguise your fear as sarcasm or your sadness as anger. Speak truth, speak clearly, and speak directly. Because when you are precise in your speech, three things happen. You understand yourself better, others can finally understand you, and the world becomes just a little bit less chaotic. Peterson's message is clear. If you want to navigate life successfully, stop hiding behind unclear words. Be exact, be honest, be brave. Because clarity is the foundation of strength, and precision is the first step toward progress. Rule number 11. Don't bother children when they are skateboarding. When you see a kid skateboarding down a railing, your first instinct might be to shout, stop, you will hurt yourself. But Jordan Peterson says, don't. Why? Because in that moment, the child isn't just playing, they are practicing how to be courageous. They are testing boundaries, pushing limits, and learning what means to face fear voluntarily. Rule 11 isn't about skateboards, it's about the deep human need for danger, challenge, and resilience, especially in boys. Peterson warns us if we remove all risk, we don't make children safe, we make them weak. A society that overprotects its youth creates adults who are anxious, entitled, and unprepared for reality. When children are allowed to confront danger, even in small doses, they build the confidence to handle bigger threats later in life. Scrapped knees today are better than shattered lives tomorrow. Peterson observed this in skate parks. The boys there were not being reckless, they were voluntarily confronting fear. They were mastering their bodies, the environment, and their emotions. And guess what? They wanted the challenge because deep down human beings thrive on it. Now, here's where the message turns bold. Peterson argues that the modern world often tries to feminize boys under the guise of safety and equality. We discourage aggression, competitiveness, and toughness, but these traits, when harnessed properly, are not toxic. They are essential. Not every boy needs to be gentle. Some boys need to be strong, brave, even a little wild, because the world needs defenders just as much as it needs nurturers. And this doesn't mean letting kids do anything they want. Peterson is clear. It's about allowing risk that leads to growth. It's about recognizing the value of earned strength, the kind that comes from failing, falling, getting back, and trying again. Think about your own life. Where did your confidence come from? Was it comfort? Or was it the moment you stood up to a bully, spoke in front of a crowd, took a risk and succeeded, or failed and realized you could survive? The world is chaotic. It will not be kind to people who have been shielded from reality their entire lives. So, when we bubble wrap childhood, we are not protecting kids, we are robbing them of preparation. They grow up fearful, fragile, and unable to cope. So, what should we do instead? Let them climb, let them explore, let them fall a little, let them figure out what they are capable of and where their limits lie. Instead of controlling every step, supervise from a distance and support their courage. Jordan Peterson's message here is a wake up call. Risk is necessary, strength is earned, and boys and girls need space to become competent and courageous. When you see them skateboarding, remember they are not just playing, they are becoming. Rule number 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Sometimes life hits you with a weight so heavy, words can't fix it. Maybe it's illness, grief, failure, or the slow breakdown of someone you love. And in the middle of that storm, Jordan Peterson offers a surprisingly simple rule. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. What does that mean? It means when life becomes unbearable, pause and notice the small, fleeting moments of peace. This rule was born from pain. Peterson wrote it during the time his daughter Michaela was suffering from severe juvenile arthritis. She endured over 20 surgeries before age of 20. Watching his child suffer, powerless to stop it, Peterson realized something profound, that in life's darkest moment, meaning can be found in the smallest details. So when he saw a cat on the street, sitting calmly in the sun, purring softly as it watched the world, he stopped, not because the cat solved anything, but because in that moment it reminded him beauty still exists even if for just a minute. This rule isn't really about cats, it's about perspective. When you are trapped in suffering, your world narrows. You begin to believe there's only pain, but the truth is, joy and beauty haven't vanished. You have just forgotten to look for them. Life is short and suffering is guaranteed. But if we train ourselves to see the little sparks, the quiet sunset, the laughter of a child, the rhythm of a song, or yes, the presence of a friendly cat, we reclaim a piece of control. We refuse to let suffering steal everything. Peterson isn't telling us to ignore pain, he's asking us to face it with eyes open, to walk through it without losing touch with meaning. And sometimes the meaning doesn't come in grand answers. It comes in noticing that the world, despite all its chaos, still holds gentle things. So, how can you apply this in your life? When things fall apart, resist the urge to isolate, open your senses, go for a walk, listen to birds, notice the wind, and if a cat crosses your path, stop, kneel, pet it. That's not escapism, that's survival, that's gratitude in motion. Because when everything hurts and nothing makes sense, those small, quiet acts of noticing beauty are what remind you you are still here, you are still human, and there's still something to hold on to. So, pet the cat not because it fixes your problems, but because it gives you a reason to pause and breathe. 12 rules for life remind us that life is suffering, but also meaning, and meaning is something you can choose to pursue. The world is noisy, chaotic, and full of quick fixes, but Peterson teaches us that truth, responsibility, and courage are what lead to fulfillment, not comfort, not shortcuts. If even one rule in this book hit you today, don't just listen, apply it. Start with one change. Small actions done consistently are what transform lives. Let me know in the comments which rule hit you the hardest. Was it rule 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back? Or rule number 12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street? Drop your thoughts. I read every comment and reply to the best ones. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient.